So welcome to this episode of Voices of Fostering, where today I'm delighted to be joined by Jayne and Ken. Hello, guys.
Hi, nice to see you.
Hi.
Now, you are two of our, am I allowed to call you long-timers?
Yeah.
Long-time foster carers. It's getting on for 20 years, is it now that you've been foster carers? So tell us about that. If you can cast your minds back to, 20 years ago, what was it that made you want to do it and how did it all begin for you?
I think initially we were very, very naive. We didn't really know what fostering entailed. We actually passed a stand in a shopping centre. And I remember going up the escalator and saying, should we go down and talk to them? And we did. And they came to see us. And we were really shocked about the reasons why children were looked after. We sort of started the process to foster and backed out several times because we kept thinking, we're not sure if we can do this or not.
It was so different to what we expected.
Yeah.
We expected to be asked to look after two children. For example, if their parents had been injured in a road accident and they were in hospital, we'd look after these two children while mum and dad were in hospital. All we had to do was show them a bit of love, feed them and give them a home and make them happy. And we honestly believe
we were very, very naive. And
so far from the truth.
Yeah, when we did our skills for foster course, we loved it. And then we sat back and went, just not sure. And then we were approved and then we literally could not wait to take our first placement. And there's a story in itself, really, because Ken didn't want to take younger children because he said, this is how different we are now. He didn't want our lives to change too much by taking younger children. We were on holiday with our kids. I had to come back early because our son was doing exams and I took the phone call.
I said that under no circumstances would I ever take a child under 9. And I was adamant. I was adamant. There was no conversation.
And what was it about 9, Ken? Why 9?
I just thought that was the kind of age where they could interact with us and they could fit into our lifestyle. Anything younger than that would disrupt our life.
Okay.
However, I took the phone call and met Ken back at the airport and said, we've got our first placement. And sort of long story short, I said, it's a 3-year-old boy. And he was like, what's going on?
That's quite a bit younger than 9, that, isn't it?
I was a bit more than just what. I was thinking divorce.
And then I said, has he sort of come down and went, and his baby brother? And he was like, what? How old is he? I said, well, he's 3 weeks old, but he'll be in hospital for another 3 weeks because he's heavily addicted. And
that was it. I was phoning the solicitor at that point.
But it was, and he'll admit it was the best decision I ever made because he was the first one in the hospital that bonded with that baby. We all collected him from hospital. And, we've had a baby in the house for, I would say, 19 out of the 20 years that we fostered. And so we were approved for birth to 18. We've had lots of different children, done lots of different ages, but many babies that we've actually brought home from the hospital and moved on to adoption and returned home. So he admits he was wrong on that one.
Yeah, so Ken, your under 9 rule changed quite quickly, didn't it?
Very quickly.
So tell us about that then.
I think I would prefer I prefer under 9s. I like babies, newborns fine, babies of any age and young children. I was so wrong, she was right. It's not very often I say that, but in this case, she really was right.
I think, and we suddenly realised that I think any child you can adapt your life for that child to fit in with your life. We have to make changes and things that you need to be prepared for, but it's the right decision. And we do foster children of any age. It's not something that an age that we stick to, but that's how it's ended up. And we've got 3 children in placement at the moment. We've got a 2-year-old, a 5-year-old and a 7-year-old.
Wow.
And
All under 9.
You're under 9, yeah. So you said, at the beginning you were quite naive. Do you think there's no getting away from that, really? Like most people at the start of their journey, they are really. They don't really know what they're getting into.
I think unless you've come from a fostering family where your parents fostered, then it's quite a shock. It is a shock because sometimes I think we've led very sheltered lives. We had kids ourselves that grew up with normal sort of childhood problems, and then to realise the reasons why kids are looked after, it is a shock.
Yeah. So tell us about the beginning again then. You said you took those 2 children on. How did that go? Was that quite a steep learning curve?
Yes, it was, because
very, very much.
We had to be trained to give more morphine to the baby because he was so addicted. He was very, very poorly, more poorly than we knew, really. And he remained on morphine for several months. However, once he'd finished that, he was like flicking this switch. He developed absolutely beautifully, and his brother. It was wonderful. It was absolutely wonderful. They were moved to grandparents after a year. Really sadly, that broke down. It just didn't work, and then they came back to us for another year, and then they moved on to adoption. And we saw these boys at Christmas. They're grown men now, and they still got our life story book, so they knew who everybody was. And I can't even tell you how my heart was with that, because it was amazing. We stayed in touch.
They become your own children.
They've always got that bit of
they'll leave, but they're still our children.
So are you still in touch with a lot of children and young people that you've had in your care? Yeah,
definitely.
And
got one young man. Well, he was a young man. He's not anymore. His children call us nanny
and granddad.
Yeah. Wow.
And
and they're often here. We've always got kids here. Well, they're men now. They've got often men.
Yeah. So what are some other children and young people who stand out, really, who've lived with you?
Okay.
Well, there's Chase, the child I've got at the moment. We had him from 8 months old. We took him direct from hospital. He was extremely ill. He'd never left the hospital ward at that point. We picked him up from hospital and brought him home. We were told he would never sit up unaided, he would never walk, and he'd never talk. We went to Chessington yesterday, and he ran around screaming and shouting, going on all the big rides. He has beaten every milestone anybody even dreamt for him. And the feeling we get from that, I can't even describe it. Nobody could pay us enough money to look at him and feel like we do. It's just absolutely amazing. You get so much more from these children. You get more from them than they give us.
We had another boy who came to us when he was 15. The local authority described him as a child from hell. And that made us take him, actually. We were like, they can't call a child that. And that we took him. And he came. And we had 3 teenage boys at home at the time. He fitted right in the middle of them. Became very close to our middle son. And for the first couple of weeks, he would come downstairs with his baseball cap on, just no eye contact. He'd come down for food and then go back to his room. And then after about 3 weeks, he came downstairs one morning and he had no baseball cap on. And you're like, oh, what's going on? And it was like his little comfort blanket. And he'd managed to put that down. Well, he's now in his 30s and he's the boy with 2 children of his own. Oh. He works a very good job. He's amazing. And we've got another teenager that came when he was 5. He stayed with us from when he was 5 until he left care at 18. He manages a charity shop, and he's now just got another job and he's moving around. and just the work ethic is amazing, and they're here all the time.
Yeah. They're everything you want from your own
So you must have so many people in and out of your house all the time. So do you know how many children and young people you've had stay with you throughout the 19 years?
Well, do you know what? I used to religiously count, and then it just got so difficult because some children would, as I say, would leave us and then come back, and then respites. I don't know. I don't know, but it's a lot. It's 50. A lot. Maybe 50, yeah. It's a lot. A lot of the children have come very young, and they stayed a long time. We had another boy from 7 until 19. And it's and I think even the little boy that we're looking after now, because of his additional needs, we never set out to look after children with additional needs. It happened. One of the children we were looking after became very ill, and ended up on life support, and so we were literally trained in an IC unit to look after him, and then from that point of looking after him, then we've been offered more children who are tube fed and have got sort of quite complex medical needs,
just because of the skills we've learned.
Got, and I mean, we had no medical history whatsoever, but just had really good training from a hospital. So we tube feed, we can suction, we can all these things that some of these children do need. That is so rewarding, and I think some people do shy away from that because it makes them scared. It is. Sure. It is so rewarding. It is so rewarding because sometimes it's very difficult to find carers for children with like complex medical needs.
Yeah,
and you know what? They're such beautiful children.
They
really are. They're children with additional needs somehow are a bit special, aren't they? They don't demand so much of you. They're just very loving, and people imagine that they imagine it's so hard to look after a child that, for example, is tube fed. It's not. It's once you get over that initial fear of what you're doing and get used to it, it's sometimes easier than looking after a child with no problems.
Yeah, and I imagine there's a lot of training and support that goes into that, isn't there?
There is. I mean, and as an agency, NFA, if we've had anything that comes up, they will find us training that is relevant to us. We had a child that was coming in with diabetes. We hadn't looked after a child with diabetes before. So literally, training was arranged the next day with a nurse. So there's an awful lot of support out there, an awful lot of support. Yeah. And to be fair, any child that comes to you, there's gonna be some hard times ahead, I think, with any child that you look after because of what they've been through. And sometimes I often think, we need to show empathy for those children. I always think about when we're told we're going to get a new placement, makes me really nervous. Yeah,
but it's exciting.
But I get so nervous. And he always says to me, "Why are you nervous?" And I say, because that child is coming to us. He's been maybe just removed from his parents or another carer. They come into a house they've never seen, to people they don't know, and it's how you interact with the children. And we've got a dog that really helps. That really does help. So, yeah.
Young people will gravitate if they're very, very nervous about the adults in the house. They'll gravitate to the dog.
Yeah, I hear that a lot. We talk about that a lot, actually, that, firstly, sometimes if people have animals, they might think, oh, that means that I can't foster because I've got animals. And that isn't always the case at all, But then they can also, the animals, be really, really therapeutic and helpful, can't they?
100%. We've got a big German Shepherd. We've always had German Shepherds. And there's been occasions where we've taken children in the middle of the night. And some children have come from police cells where they've been arrested and they need somewhere safe for the night. And you're up in the middle of the night and you're cooking pizzas.
Always pizzas.
Always pizzas.
That's good.
Always have a good stash in the freezer.
Yeah, always in the freezer. And they don't tend to want to talk to you, but they'll sit and they'll touch the dog and you can see them relax. So the dog has really come in handy.
But we always say, even me as an adult now, the thought of being taken somewhere totally away from everything I know and being taken to a home and said, oh, you're going to live in this place with these people now. Goodbye. Social worker and just leaves you. What would that feel like? I say, even as an adult, that would feel awful.
You know,
for these young people, it's so hard.
We spoke about the first little boy that we fostered when his brother was still in the hospital. So he came to us beforehand, and we'd gone out and we'd bought all these things, and the social worker left, and we said, come on, we need to put him to bed now. And we put him to bed, and we heard him singing himself to sleep. And Ken and I sat on the top step and cried our eyes out. This was our first placement, and he was singing himself to sleep. Yeah. And this, you know, you think, this isn't what we planned. This was heartbreaking. Yeah. We sat and cried. So beautiful. We just sat and cried and cried. Been a lot of crying.
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of laughter. There's a lot of crying as well.
Yeah, but, you know, the tears are worth it, aren't they? Definitely. They're all part of the journey, aren't they?
They are. I wouldn't change anything that we've ever done in all that time, because everything it's either taught us something, or when children move on to adoption or they move home, you know, it doesn't matter where they're moving to. That is the hardest part of fostering, because you can't, with a young child, you can't say to them, you know, I'm not going to be there when you go to bed tonight. I'm not going to be there when you wake up in the morning. And the kids normally bounce through it. They really do cope well, and it's us sitting at home crying our eyes out. Yeah.
I mean, we've picked children up several times from maternity, you know, just a couple of days old, and we've had them for 2.5 years. And then one day you have to just hand them over and say goodbye. And it's no different to giving up your own children, your own birth children.
But I think the process for adoption is so good with the introduction period now. And I mean, they practically will live in your house for a week, and then you'll go and spend a week at their house. And every adoption that we have actually done has been so well arranged. And we always say we couldn't have handpicked parents better than the social services did, because they've all had amazing parents. They've all thrived in adoption. It's good. It's really good.
Because that's one thing that we come back to a lot, really, in these conversations that we have on the podcast, and conversations I have in real life as well. When I tell people what I do, and they always say, "Oh, I couldn't foster because you have to give them back, and that's so hard." And every carer that I speak to says, yeah, it is hard, but we understand it's part of the process and it makes sense. Do you know what I mean?
When we go into this, we knew that we were not going to keep any children, our ages, etc. And even the first 2 children, we were asked to adopt them, and we said we didn't go through this process to help 2 children. We want to help lots. So we knew children were never going to stay, but that doesn't stop my heart from breaking when they leave. But you go into this knowing what the plan is.
These children are going on to a home where they're really wanted,
loved.
And they're going to be cared for, and there's other children sitting there
waiting
where there's no homes for them.
Yeah.
That's the next step.
Now, earlier on, guys, we talked a little bit about training. And obviously you have your Schools to Foster training right at the beginning of your journey. But training's ongoing, isn't it? There's always new things to learn. And you say, you've had lots of specialist training, looking after children with additional needs and things like that. But you've also had, was it mindfulness training? Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, I think even down to any sort of training that we do with regard to the children, a little bit is focused on the subject of the mindfulness, because how do you look after these children if you're not looking after yourself?
Yeah.
Because it's not easy. And even when you do like de-escalation training or something like that, you need to be prepared in yourself to be ready to look after the children. So it's about giving yourself time, about sort of focusing on what's happened. And if there's an event that happens, then you need to sit back and think about it, and how will I do that differently, and how has that affected the child? So mindfulness is really, really important. It is important, because people used to say to us, what time do you have for yourself? And we used to say, well, this was when we were really busy. We go shopping once a week to Tesco's. That was our time.
I thought you were going to say, when I go to the toilet, sometimes I get 2 minutes, if I'm lucky.
Right.
I mean, there have been times when it was like that. that very first child we had.
Yeah, he was so poorly.
He was so heavily addicted that he only slept for an hour a day. He screamed the rest of the time. He was in pain in his tummy, and he was curled up into a ball. We used to sleep in 1 hour shifts. I would walk around the house rocking him while he cried, and then I'd wake her up and pass him over, and then she'd spend an hour, and then she'd pass him back to me, and that I was still working.
Ken still had a job in those days.
I used to go to work and leave her sitting on the settee with him. I'd come home and she'd still be in her nightclothes sitting on the settee with him. You know, that was
tough. It was tough.
Really, that was our first placement.
That was your first child. So what made you want to carry on after that? Because that sounds hard going.
Oh, yeah, it was hard. And and it's hard at the time, but when you look back on it, you think, oh, okay, you got through it. Our boys were all at home. They were amazing. But it's, I think when you see the changes in those children and you think you played a part in that, why not carry on?
But to a certain extent, it's the opposite of what you've just said. At the time, it doesn't seem hard. At the time, it's something you've got to do.
Yeah, you have to do it.
And you just do it. It's afterwards when you look back at it and think, how did I ever do that? And it just seems horrific now, looking back at it. But as I say, at the time, you had to do it. You had no choice. It's like every parent that's woken up 10 times in the night with their own children, you know, you have to do it, you do it. And then afterwards, as I say, it sounds awful, but you've seen this massive improvement. And that little boy has turned into an amazing young man. He plays county cricket. He's
they both did
amazingly clever. You know, and you can think, well, I had a little bit to do with that.
Yeah.
And it's quite amazing to feel.
Yeah. Massively, yeah. And you said earlier, you know, how naive you thought you both were at the beginning. If you could go back, you know, 19 years and tell Jayne and Ken of 19 years ago, what, you know, some advice, what would that be?
I would say
take under nines.
I would say if you're considering fostering, be prepared. It will change your life. It will change your life, but it will only change your life for the better. It will teach you things that you never knew you could do or have the strength to do. As I say, I wouldn't change anything in the last 19 years because it's just, there's been some really difficult times, but there's just been the best times. And when we see these children and they've moved on to other lives and we are in touch with a lot of them, you know, I am so proud of them all because of the things that they have done and what they've achieved and the effort that they've put in because, you know, they're all amazing.
A little story I do like to tell that got to me more than just about anything was the young man we said came to us as the child from hell, the local authority called him. And we were out one day and we drove past Feltham Young Offenders Institute, and he looked at it and he said to me, "That's Feltham, isn't it?" And I went, "Yeah." And he went quiet and he went, "I'd be in there now if it wasn't for you and Jayne." And I said, "Don't be silly." And he said, No, I would." He said, "My life didn't have any meaning." He said, "I knew that I was going to be in and out of there. I was going to be in and out of prison." And he said, "I didn't really care." He said, "But it's different now. Since I've come to you, I know my life's going to be good." I get choked up even saying that because I remember.
You've choked me up as well, Ken. I think
feeling from that kind of thing.
What I mean, when else could you get something like that? You've changed someone's life, and we didn't even do anything really special. We just brought him into a family and we gave him the opportunities to do other things and hang around the streets.
But this is the thing, Jayne, that honestly, both of you're so humble, and you just say like, oh, it's not about us, it's about the children. But it is like the incredible things that you have both done. You should be so proud of yourselves. You really, really should.
Just makes us feel...
We are happy. We're out in our life, and what we do, it makes us happy.
Yeah.
It makes us happy.
And for the last nearly 3 months, we only had one child, and this house has been so boringly quiet.
So quiet.
Oh, like we need more chaos. We need more going on.
When he went to school,
we were like, what are we doing now?
The house stayed clean and tidy all day long, and we just sat there looking at each other. It was really peculiar because it's probably the only time
in those almost 20 years
that we've only had one child.
We've had 3 children. We went into fostering to do sibling groups. We had 2. In all that time, it just happened that we took a baby, then we took another child, and we've never, in 19 years, we've never been empty. Never. We've normally had 3 children.
It did seem strange.
Yeah, it did.
Just to see the living room floor, not a couple of weeks, strange.
Well, Jayne and Ken, thank you so much for talking to us and sharing your stories with us. We've laughed, we've cried, we've been on a right old journey, haven't we? Thank you so much, and best of luck with the next 20 years, maybe?
Yeah, hope so.
I probably don't think so. Not my age.
Thank you so much, guys. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you ever so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for joining us for another episode of Voices of Fostering. If you'd like to get involved in the conversation, we would love to hear your questions. Maybe there's something you'd really like to ask about fostering. Get in touch. You can email us on podcast@nfa.co.uk.